Hey everyone, and welcome back to another industry report. Anthem sales have been terrible in retail in the United Kingdom in 2019, and it's an online-only game. Okay, the sky may not be falling, but there's actually a lot of analysis to do on this one, and, well, quite a key takeaway for the publisher involved, Electronic Arts, who, as you may know, expected Anthem to sell between 5 and 6 million units by the end of March. Yeah, 5 to 6 million units in just over a month. You might be wondering, how does this expectation compare with other games in the same genre? Well, Activision don't really give out sales numbers, although we do know the Destiny 2 ended up outselling its predecessor. Now, leaked court documents from the Martin O'Donnell lawsuit reveal that Destiny 1's first month sales were 6.3 million units, so we can assume the Destiny 2 outsold that. And yeah, because we know that D2 sales numbers were over D1 sales numbers a few months after release, which of course did also include PC. Now we also have The Division, which, at least in terms of revenue, was able to beat Destiny 1's record-breaking launch for a new IP. While we don't have the sales figures, it's safe to assume that game sold pretty well over 6 million for its initial launch. So, 6 million seems to be this number you want to beat if you want to establish a new IP in this genre. From Electronic Arts' perspective, Ubisoft got it, ActiBliz got it, so hey, why don't we get it too? And I guess it seems like a reasonable target given the past data, but it does show a bit of hubris. Why do I say hubris? Well, Destiny 1, Destiny 2, and The Division all launched with significant issues. And it's fair to say that Anthem has a lot of those same issues, but then, a lot more on top of that. But even past that, through updates and through sequels, most of the other games in the genre are in a far better state than when they launched. So within this loot shooter subgenre, there's really strong competition. While Anthem does offer a unique style of gameplay, it's fair to say that it does fall short in most of those other regards, including ones that the core loot shooter fanbase views being fairly important, with it having an open critics score of 61% with 14% of critics recommending it. Pretty much the lowest launch score of a game in that genre. So this brings us to the sales data, the massive headlines that Anthem has sold half the physical copies of Mass Effect Andromeda. Well, what does that actually amount to? How did Mass Effect Andromeda do overall? How does the market compare? How is it different? Does it compare to Destiny 2 or The Division in terms of its launch physical sales? Well, we'll tackle Mass Effect first. After all, they're both Bioware games. So EA predicted 3 million sales before the end of March, and bear in mind that Mass Effect Andromeda came out in roughly the same part of the year that Anthem did, and they then predicted 6 to 9 million as its lifetime total. Well, analyst Michael Proctor estimated 2.5 million shipped in its launch quarter, but we just don't have solid overall numbers because, well, they haven't told us, but we do think the game has made its money back and then a bit more. Now, comparing the like-for-like numbers, Mass Effect Andromeda led physical sales in the UK, but had a weaker launch than Mass Effect 3 by half. Now, this does seem to have been quite weak. While Mass Effect Andromeda was not a financial flop, it definitely did underperform, and I think that's very evident because EA clearly decided that they did not have enough of an install base to warrant future paid DLC development. So for a better comparison, let's use the Destiny franchise. Again, the UK physical sales because we have pretty good data for that. Anthem managed to sell around 10% of Destiny 1's UK launch physical sales. Destiny 1 sold 417,000 copies in its first week, so Anthem probably sold just over 40,000 copies physically in the UK. Now, Destiny 2 outsold Destiny 1 overall, but had half its launch physical sales at 175k in the UK, overall showing us that consumers more than ever are moving towards digital. Still though, Anthem seems to have sold 25% of Destiny 2's launch physical copies in the UK, and those numbers are just under, just a year and a bit apart, essentially. So no doubt more customers have moved towards digital since the Destiny 2 launch, meaning that things are likely not that bad or as bad for Anthem, but let's be real, the early numbers do indicate that the game is underperforming, even as compared to its contemporaries. There are then a number of curveballs, though, with EA. We've got Origin Access, and the premium version of that gives people full access to the game for £15 a month. While that may not be a good deal long-term in many ways, that is something that could have dissuaded physical sales. Additionally, the cheaper Origin Access trial factors in that gives people a 10-hour demo. Let's be real, 10 hours is enough to know if you do not want to play more Anthem. Mass Effect Andromeda was also heavily impacted by Origin Access, really allowing the worst parts of that game to be memed up, but that was its cheaper tier, not the version of Origin Access that gives you a full copy of the game. Well, access to a full copy of the game. And really, I think that these factors do have a very meaningful impact on the value of UK physical copy sales data, especially through the Access Premium stuff, though again, it's very hard to tell how many people have actually signed up for that because EA have not actually given us the numbers. Now, I really think that Origin Access burned both games, but I've already done a full deep dive video on why that is and how I think it's an interesting part of their business model, and it's worth checking that video out after this one. But yeah, overall, I do think that Anthem has sold quite poorly. However, the market is actually very different now, and before we talk about the game itself, I think we actually need to talk about how EA makes their money, because one trend you will have seen recently is loads of companies reporting, well, not their sales numbers, but they're reporting their revenue instead. Why is that? Well, the modern industry simply is no longer a case of selling a $60 boxed copy of a game at GameStop. For Origin Access, it's almost closer to Netflix, with games like Anthem not being a single sales event. Indeed, between Anthem and Battlefield 5, it seems like EA's overall plan is to have new things hit both of those games on a near monthly basis, just making people feel like, oh yeah, I've got Origin Access Premium, there's always this content coming in. We have already heard from Bioware that the next Dragon Age is going to have live elements as well, and yeah, this is the future of the industry, like it or not. It's how these companies are going. Past that, though, well, the physical sales are actually really bad for companies if they could otherwise be digital. Now, while talking about the Epic Game Store situation, we were talking about a 70-30 revenue split versus an 85-15 revenue split. Guess what? Both of those clobber retail, where a publisher gets around half, sometimes a little less than half, of the sales price of a game. And then, of course, they also get hit by pre-owned, which means that they earn, well, nothing. This means that the profitability of selling a game in a digital storefront is far higher, especially if it's the company's own storefront. Sure, it costs a bit of money to run that storefront, but it really is not that much, and it scales quite well. So lower physical sales copies are good for publishers, assuming that they can translate that over to more digital sales, which, I mean, is a bit up in the air. But the thing is, we're also using UK numbers. Now, these are numbers that are mostly being covered by Americans in the press. But here's the thing, anyone who lives in the UK can tell you that physical is down for more reasons than just a shift to digital, because HMV and Game, two of our largest retailers who sold games, massively scaled back. In 2012, Game entered administration with PricewaterhouseCoopers, leading to 277 of 609 stores closing. In my hometown of 25,000 people, you literally cannot purchase a physical game other than Tesco, which is like the equivalent of our Walmart, but is very understocked when it comes to games. I mean, extremely so. Now, of course, Amazon does exist, but it is just worth bearing in mind the UK retail sector when talking about UK physical game sale data. So, overall, physical sales are worth like near half of digital ones to publishers. Physical sales are really an increasingly bad statistic, but they still do offer a bit of a like-for-like comparison, and that does suggest that Anthem is faring quite poorly, which of course does line up with the very weak critical reviews that game has came out, and we then need to bear in mind that the competition is very strong for the genre. Overall, I think that Origin Access is going to make or break this game. Even if it does not do fantastically well straight up, I have to wonder if EA see it as an ongoing addition to their Origin Access library, an asset that will hold value over time more than a regular game will. For EA, that might be fine, but you know what? For players of the games, I don't really think it's great. Because yeah, Anthem came out too early. It did not have key features. It had an underdeveloped endgame. It had loot systems that were frankly very poorly designed, with Bioware even rapidly, very recently, patching in changes to Masterwork soon after launch. It's not a case of the game's content being half-baked or it being buggy. Both things are true, but primarily, the problem is the design of the game is half-baked. A good design can weather bugs and oversights. A bad design can't. What does this mean for Bioware? Are they going to go under? Are they going to disappear? Many people will be kind of alarmist about that right now. And I'm probably going to do a full video about this in the future, but basically, Visceral Games, another EA studio who went the way of the dodo, they were absurdly expensive because of their location and the fact that they were not benefiting from Canadian tax breaks. Bioware does, just like Motive. Canada has a very competitive game sector for foreign investment, I suppose, to the detriment of US-based studios in certain states. The whole topic's super interesting. I mean, just look at anything Hi-Rez makes. There's a big reason why you see a Georgia peach when you boot up their game. It's because the government's helping them. So Bioware will likely be just fine this time. But it is true that one or two more large failures could be pretty bad for the studio in the long term. But right now, I do feel that Bioware are very ingrained to EA's core gaming offerings, and I think that means that they are going to stay, even if Anthem does not completely blow everyone's socks off, especially because of those Canadian tax incentives, which really are quite strong. So there you go. That's it for this video. If you want some more content on this channel, check out my discussion on the CEO pay situation. It's a bit of a funky video in that there's a lot of explaining very uncomfortable financial stuff. I'm absolutely not defending the amount of compensation these people are getting, but I think it's very important to have a facts-based discussion about these things, and that really is what could lead to people being able to, well, make good arguments against the way that a lot of this stuff is going, and more pragmatically solve the problem of CEO to worker pay ratios and how they seemingly are ballooning over time. So you can check that video out down below. Thank you very much for watching this one, and with that, I will see you next time.